Life is really short, but most people spend it like they have all the time in the world. The average human lives to be about 80 years old, which is just 4,000 weeks. I just turned 30, meaning I've already lived 1,560 weeks, and I only have 2,440 weeks left. It can be really scary to see how much time you actually have left, but you can also take it as a wake-up call. So in this video, I want to talk about how short life is and how you can spend it in a more meaningful way. I came to this realization one late night at work, and I still remember this very vividly because I was super annoyed and frustrated that I had to work late that night. It was already, I don't know, like 7 p.m. or past 8 p.m. and I saw my phone, it just started ringing, and I saw that my mom was calling me. And my first thought wasn't, oh, that's sweet, my mom is calling me. But instead, my first thought was, what does she want now? I grabbed my phone from my table, and the first thing she asked me in the very sweet, kind mom voice is, are you coming home for dinner, or should I save you some food? And I remember responding to her in a very angry, frustrated voice, as if she said something that was completely outrageous. And what I said was, no, I don't have time, and then I hang up and I got back to work. It wasn't until I got home around midnight and I just saw my mom smiling, waiting there, happy to see me, and she just asked me how work was, and then she brought out the food that she saved me, and the only thought that I had at that moment was, wow, I'm an asshole. And that's when I realized that I needed to get back in control of my time, of my life, before it became worse or before it got too late. And you probably feel somewhat the same way, right? More than 80% of people feel time poor. It's when you have too many things to do and not enough time to do them. Like, what is the point of trying to build wealth long term if you are just stuck all day working? But reclaiming your time means absolutely nothing unless you actually know what you want to do with it instead. Otherwise, you're just gonna free up a bunch of hours only to fill them up with whatever noise and obligations that just comes along your way that has nothing to do with what you actually want in life. So the first step to reclaiming your time so you can spend it wisely is to decide on your 3 core pillars. Because once you know these 3 core pillars, whenever an opportunity or something pops up, you can determine whether or not it falls within your 3 pillars. If it does, then great, go on and do it. If not, then say no because it doesn't serve you. Think of it like Marie Kondo, but for your schedule and for your time. I'll share my personal 3 core pillars in a bit, but first I just want you to understand like how seriously I take these core pillars or this idea of being able to reclaim your time and spend it on things that you actually want to do. And basically I dedicated or committed myself to working really hard to achieve financial freedom. And if you don't know what it is, it's basically when you have enough financial security that you can afford to live life on your own terms, right? The freedom to say no to a toxic job that you don't want to do, the freedom to spend time with my family and my friends when I want to, and the freedom to not have to pretend that your boss's jokes are funny. For me in financial freedom, money isn't really the goal, all right? Money is just the tool to buy the freedom, to buy the time, so I can spend my time focusing on the 3 core pillars. And the great thing with this is that you don't actually need to achieve financial freedom to be able to free your time to focus on the core pillars. You just need to find pockets of time to free up. So for me, one of the easiest places to free up time is with busy work. Studies show that people spend more than half their day doing busy admin work. But what if you can free up those hours to focus on things that actually matter? Well, thanks to today's sponsor, GenSpark, now you can. And I'll even show you an example of how you can use it. GenSpark is a single super agent that you can use to do everything you need, from creating slides, analyzing data, downloading files, and even making phone calls for you. For example, I'll use it every so often for research to see what kind of video topics other content creators are talking about. So I'll just type into GenSpark, find 10 YouTube videos about personal finance and productivity, and analyze their metrics and their comments. This helps me do some high-level research on what videos might be trending and what people like you are interested in learning more about. So you can see that GenSpark agent is doing the research in real time. And if I wanted to present all this research data to my team, voila, I easily turned all that data into slides that we can now easily review. So if you're interested in reclaiming your time with a full AI team behind you so you can focus on what actually matters, check out GenSpark at the link down below. All right, so what are my personal 3 core pillars that I basically use as my life compass that allows me to spend my time on things that make my life meaningful? My first pillar is based on this chart, which changed how I saw the world. This is from our World in Data, and this report basically shows who we spend our time with across our lifetime, and I think it's something that we can all really relate to. Looking at the early years on the left, when you are a kid, you tend to spend most of your time with your family, which makes sense because we're kids and they literally control our food supply, so we don't really have much of a choice. Then when you are a teenager, you start to hang out with friends a bit more, like on the weekends or after school. Fast forward to when you're a young adult in your 20s or 30s, and the people that we see most daily are not going to be our family or our best friends. They're going to be our romantic partners, if you have one, as well as our coworkers, which is kind of sad. Like, I don't really want to interact with my coworker Brad for longer than I have to because he's annoying and he has really bad BO, but I have to because it's my job. I'd even argue that most people during this age, they spend more time optimizing their LinkedIn profile than their actual friendships. But here's where it actually gets really interesting. So as you get into your 40s, your 50s, and 60s, your social circles, they don't just shift, they literally shrink dramatically, including your friends, your coworkers, and your family. When you retire, you might have all the time in the world, but much of it is just spent alone. Fortunately or not, this chart really shows something that most people completely ignore. And it's that we have about 18 years of really concentrated family time, maybe 10 to 15 years of close friendships, 30 years with coworkers, and then decades where we're just on our own for the most part. When I saw this, I immediately thought about how I was treating my relationships. Like how many times I told my mom I'd call her that night only to forget, or that I made plans with my friends to go out, but then I had to get a video out. People who actually mattered to me were getting whatever leftover time and energy I had, if any. And it's way more than just physically sitting together or being there together or doing something together, right? You could be grabbing a meal with your friends, but if you're on your phone the entire time, or if your mind is daydreaming or wandering, were you actually there? Was your presence and your energy actually 100% there? Because if not, then you weren't actually there. When researchers ask people on their deathbeds about regrets, it's never, I wish I worked more. It's always about relationships that they just let slip away. The point is, give the people that you love who matter the most to you the best hours of your day and not the leftovers. And be present as much as you can while you still can. All right, so the next pillar. All right, so a common mistake that I see a lot of people make that I was also very guilty of is when they sacrifice their health to achieve their goals. For example, my goal of financial freedom, right? I remember working on Wall Street, I was absolutely miserable. And the only thing that kept me sane during those terrible long hours was stress eating. And since I was trying to save money, I always looked for the cheapest food that was around me. And this was all before like fast food chains started charging like their Michelin star restaurant. Back then, fast food was relatively affordable, especially compared to like a $25 salad from Sweetgreens. But after constantly eating this crap for years, right, I gained a lot of weight, and I was constantly tired, I was sluggish, and I just felt overall terrible. And even though I was in my early 20s when I did blood work at the doctor, they told me that I had high cholesterol, which increases the risk of heart disease. And honestly, I think it's all thanks to eating all this crap. One thing I think a lot of y'all can relate to is having the I will sleep when I'm dead mentality or mindset. Basically meaning you will sacrifice your sleep to hustle harder, to make more money, to do X, Y, and Z. And again, this is something that I was very guilty of, even sometimes bragging that, oh yeah, I pulled all-nighter studying or working or stayed until midnight in the office. But the WHO found that regularly working 55 plus hours per week raises the risk of stroke by 35% and dying from heart disease by 17% compared to those who worked for fewer hours. And I don't know about you, but what's the point? Again, right? Building wealth if your health is just deteriorating. And fun fact, sleep isn't just to rest. It's literally how your brain cleans itself. That's why on mornings when you don't get enough sleep, you feel like crap. And studies show that your decision-making abilities during these times drops to the same level as being legally drunk. Which is a problem because if you're trying to build wealth, right, the promotion that you're trying to get or the relationships that you're building, they all depend on your brain functioning at its best. The point is, you need to spend time prioritizing your health because it is the foundation for everything else. Just like how you invest money in the stock market and in watching it grow, your health compounds everything else, right? It compounds your energy, your decision making, your ability to show up for people that you care about. You can't spend your life wisely if you don't care about your brain or your body. Which brings me to the third point. Spend your time learning. For most people, after they graduate from school and they start working a job, they basically become a hamster trapped in a cage doing the same stuff every day. They wake up, they eat, they go to work, they eat, they sleep, and then repeat until it's all over. One of the easiest ways that I found to break this very sad loop is by actively learning and growing. It's really what keeps life fresh and fun. For example, I know a lot about finance and money and investing, which is great, and I love helping and teaching people about it, but just like pineapple pizza, if you have it every single day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it can get a little boring. So after I moved into this new house, something that has been really rewarding for me is learning how to do house stuff. Basic stuff like changing a lock, to learn about electrical breaker boxes. And this sounds really boring, but it is very rewarding. Like the other day, right? The dishwasher that came with the house, it stopped spraying water. The fridge started leaking, so I opened both of these appliances up and I unclogged the dishwasher pump, and I also cleared the fridge drain hole. And weirdly, it was kind of fun to do because I've never done it before. It was something new. So Vincent Chan Handyman Services coming in 2026. We all know life is short. Heck, I only have like 2,400 weeks of life left, assuming I live to 80, but it can also feel incredibly long when you are stuck in the same routines and doing the same things. Learning is one of those few things that make it feel longer, richer, and more rewarding. Which brings me to something that you've got to start accepting. If you ever felt trapped at work like me and you want more time for yourself, the best way is to start taking your finances seriously. The more control you have over your money, the less dependent you are on your job, and the very first step in doing that is learning about freedom frugality. Freedom frugality is what helped me achieve financial freedom before I turned 30. So click here to find out what it is and why I am so frugal.